Chapter 2130 When the Shame of the Wulwan Empire. Fortunately, not many people knew about Zheng Lu's failure in this operation. At that time, only the top leaders of the empire had seen the video of that battle, and it had not yet been broadcast live across the country. Fortunately, the Imperial Emperor Ce immediately issued an order not to allow anyone to spread this matter. However, Zheng Lu knew in his heart that he had to take some measures to save his face. The most important thing is that he felt uneasy in his heart. It seemed that the entire situation was beyond his control. Those sixth-generation humans, whom he regarded as insects, the smallest, shortest-lived, and most fragile race in history, were able to escape from his hands. Zheng Lu was very angry. He immediately summoned the heads of the 4 major war zones of the entire Wulwan Empire. The Wulwan Empire has a 3-dimensional structure, and its army is divided into 4 war zones. These 4 war zones are located in the 4 corners of the empire, firmly guarding the empire. 4 silver-armored generals came to Zheng Lu's office. Among them was a special one, the current chief of staff of the military, Bing Lihuan. Bing Lihuan is a female lizard man with skin as white as snow. She is not old. According to human age, she is only in her 50s, which is still considered young among lizard men. According to Zheng Lu's previous plan, Bing Lihuan was the best choice in his mind to give birth to offspring for Pokong. But now, let's not talk about it. Zheng Lu called the Empire's current top fighters to come. Looking at these people in the conference room, his eyes were filled with sadness that he could hardly hide. There was a time when at least half of these people were not eligible to attend the conference. However, with a major war against the Huaxiu Kingdom and an operation to ambush Zhang Yi, the Wulwan Empire lost more than half of its high-level alien combat power. The situation is indeed not good. Zheng Lu thought gloomily in his heart. But now is not the time to be sad. He must cheer up. You all saw what happened today. This is the most shameful day in the history of the Wulwan Empire. The human population on the surface is growing so rapidly that it's starting to become a bit of a problem. So, I think we can't wait any longer. We must use the fastest method to eradicate the humans in Huaxiu country. Zheng Lu was very calm about his failure, and he would not make any excuses for his failure. Now I want to hear any good suggestions you have. If you have any opinions, feel free to speak up. Don't worry about anything. Although Zheng Lu's words were full of energy, everyone could tell that he was no longer as confident as before. There were 6 people sitting in the office. Apart from him, the other 5 looked at each other, thinking about how to start talking. Bing Lihuan picked up a cup of green tea and said slowly, "The most troublesome thing isn't actually humans. It's the race whose origins are unknown beneath that continent." Everyone else nodded, agreeing very much with Bing Lihuan's words. If they hadn't been concerned about the Dragon Clan, they would have occupied Huaxiu Kingdom long ago. Bang, the head of the Eastern Military Region, is a tall and thin male lizard man with 2 long ears. He wore a pair of glasses like devices over his eyes. After Bang Lihuan finished speaking, he spoke. 100,000 years have seen tremendous changes, and billions of eras have cycled. No one knows how many ancient species still exist on this planet. Judging from their appearance, they seem to have lived in the same era as our ancestors. The head of the Western Military Region is called Slake, a seductive female. She crossed her legs, squinted her eyes, and said, "Anyway, at the moment, we can't handle that civilization. So a landing operation isn't a good idea." Zheng Lu nodded slowly. "That's the problem. Is there any way to wipe out humanity without alerting that underground civilization? At least, we must kill the strongest member of that tribe." The person he was referring to must be Zhang Yi, and Zhang Yi was the first on the must-kill list. Everyone fell into silence again. Kill Zhang Yi? It's really difficult now. Zheng Lu took action personally and witnessed how fast that guy escaped. He was afraid that no one in the Wulwan Empire could catch up with him. Perhaps if Pokong was still alive, there would be a chance. After all, Pokong was the most powerful space-based ability user in the entire Wulwan Empire. Unfortunately, he is already dead. After a while, Brad, the head of the Northern Theater Command, raised his right hand. He was a young general, looking gentle in appearance, but with a very strong body. There's something I'm very concerned about right now. I think it's better to think about this problem first rather than worrying about how to deal with them. Zhenglu stared at Brad. What do you want to say, Brad? Brad took a deep breath and said slowly, Excuse me, I saw what happened today. If even you, Marshal, can't capture him, then no one in the Wulwan Empire can be his opponent. Perhaps your Majesty can, but catching him is absolutely impossible. So, I have a concern. He paused here, raised his head and glanced at everyone around him. Do you still remember that according to historical records, 800,000 years ago, the Wulwan Empire suffered a major disaster? That time, it almost wiped out our entire race. Everyone here knows that period of history because it was the most serious disaster in the history of the Ulyuan Empire. Every child will be taught about it when they are in school so that they can learn from it. Zhenglu couldn't help but recall the records of that period of history in the textbooks. About 800,000 years ago, the underground world they lived in was suddenly discovered by another underground race. It was a civilization of the 5th generation of the Yihuan tribe, but they had evolved into a different form over the long years. It was an intelligent creature covered with scales, similar to a giant snake or a giant pangolin. Their characteristics are that they can move at high speed in the soil and have extremely strong destructive power. That civilization was called the Ankylosaur civilization by them. The Ankylosaur civilization discovered their existence and launched an immediate attack. The underground world is always in crisis. A large-scale volcanic eruption or plate movement can easily destroy a civilization. Therefore, when a civilization is in a state of crisis, it will frantically seek a way out. They didn't dare to land, as they would surely die. So they turned into hunters, looking for other civilized races in the thick underground layer, plundering their resources and living space. The Ankylosaur clan drilled out from deeper into the earth, easily tore apart their thick city walls, and slaughtered their own people. Chapter 2132, Bingli Huan. The Wulwan Empire possessed powerful technological weapons at that time, but those guys were like hunters. Once the attack was successful, they would not stay for long and would quickly escape underground. The people of the Wulwan Empire could not catch up with them at all. And so, the long standoff began. The Ankylosaur clan regarded the Wulwan Empire as their granary and resource base, and the attacks lasted for more than 10 years without interruption. Later, the Wulwan Empire also suffered great losses, with countless casualties, but it ultimately relied on its superior level of civilization to completely wipe out the Ankylosaur clan. But even now, thinking about that history still makes people feel scared. Zhenglu looked at Brad. Are you saying that you're worried that guy will continue to harass our empire like the Ankylosaur described in the book? Brad spread his hands and said, What do you think? If he really did that, who could stop him? Zhenglu's eyebrows stood up. Although he had no eyebrows, there were ridges above his eyes that resembled eyebrows, which made him look majestic without even being angry. He can't get in. Our Wulwan Empire's defense system is perfect, Brad said. However, his ability seems to be able to ignore all spatial barriers and enter the city directly. Look, let me give you an example. If he went straight to the royal family and killed all of them, even if you arrived, could you catch him? In other words, he only needs to hunt little by little and kill all of us powerful empire members. Then the Wulwan Empire will naturally not be able to pose a threat to them. I think we have to guard against this. He crossed his arms, stared at Zhenglu, and said, So, you can no longer leave the empire. While you are here, he won't dare to invade. But, he said helplessly, if you stay in the empire, we won't be able to pose a sufficient threat to the Huaxiu kingdom. This is the dilemma. Brad's analysis made everyone present feel the difficulty of the problem. With the death of Pokong and Jinglu's deputy generals, there was no one else in the entire empire who could check and balance Zhang Yi. Now Zhang Yi has become a headache for them. Snort. Zhenglu suddenly slammed the table hard and said through gritted teeth, Does our Wulwan Empire have to be controlled by a country that only has 6 generations of humans? Brad was silent. In fact, there were some things in his heart that he didn't say out loud because he was worried that Zhenglu would be furious after he said them. That is, the Wulwan Empire, with its mastery of ancient history and leading intelligence and technology, concentrated the resources of the entire country to build Zhonglu into its current strength. However, those humans in the outside world who have just come into contact with the truth of history have lost all opportunities, and there are also monsters like Zhang Yi who are growing extremely fast. What does this indicate? This shows that Zhang Yi's talent far surpasses Zhonglu's. They are not even on the same level. We really must get rid of him. We can't let him grow any further. Brad said in a deep voice. Bang folded his arms. It's all your fault. There's no way to get the marshal to take action, and we have to deal with him. Are you going to do it? Don't forget, the number of our colleagues who died at his hands has reached double digits. Zhang Yi is now privately called the Silver-Armored Killer by many people among the upper echelons of the Empire, and this is not an exaggeration at all. A sinister smile appeared on Brad's lips. It's hard for us to catch him, but we can set a trap for him to fall into. A gleam of light flashed in Zhonglu's eyes. Brad said seriously, his ability is spatial. In fact, as long as there is a sufficient environment to set traps, we can completely limit his ability. As long as his ability is removed, it will not be difficult for us to kill him. What should we do? He's very cautious now. I'm afraid he won't dare to come out easily. Slack asked curiously. Brad said with a smile, do you still remember why those humans first came to the island at the entrance of the passage? Of course they remember. For the first time, Zhonglu wore armor and went to the outside world, where he met Zhang Yi and others. At that time, they were fighting for a share of the source of God that they had eliminated. It was a degraded version of the sacrificial spirit. The impurities eliminated were useful to fellow humans, but to them, they were poison that would pollute their cognition. As a result, they engaged in a fierce internal struggle for that source of God, resulting in many deaths and injuries. Zhonglu now understood Brad's thoughts. You mean set another trap and then send a signal to them? Lure them in to search for treasure, and then kill that space-based ability user when he arrives. Brad clapped his hands. Smart. That's exactly what I meant. Your Excellency, Marshal, your ability to understand is incredibly strong. Hiss. He stuck out his long tongue. Zhonglu thought about it and felt that this proposal was really feasible. Although it sounds simple, as long as the bait is valuable enough, humans will definitely take the bait. After all, that race is very greedy. They observed that as long as this race encountered something that could potentially bring them benefits, they would give it a try even if it meant taking huge risks. Great. Let's give it a try then. Zhonglu agreed with Brad's suggestion. Anyway, they have no better way now, so they can only find ways to lure Zhang Yi out and kill him. Brad quickly outlined his plans. From the southeastern waters of Huaxu Kingdom, find an island that is neither too far nor too near, and then release some of the aura of the sacrificial spirit at a certain time every day. In order to fish, the bait you need to prepare must be rich. Make sure the fish can detect its presence. Then, they just have to wait quietly for the big fish of their dreams to take the bait. The worst-case scenario is that we can't kill that space-based ability user, but killing a few more of their other powerful members wouldn't be a bad idea. Brad said with a smile. Zhonglu nodded and waved his hand. You can call on any weapons you need, even doomsday weapons. As long as we can get rid of that space system, then the entire Huaxu Kingdom will no longer be able to threaten our existence. In addition, we must guard against that guy sneaking into the Wulwan Empire. Zhonglu narrowed his eyes and suddenly looked at Bing Lihuan. Bing Lihuan, you're more familiar with this matter. With our current technology, can we achieve perfect defense? Bing Lihuan nodded. It's very simple. The Empire's cities are built in one piece, and every area has energy sensors and surveillance equipment with no blind spots. As long as he comes here, we will find him the first time he appears. Unless, when she said this, she suddenly shook her head. That's impossible. Stay with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.